Comic Book Savant, episode 327.
I know this. This I know. All that I have, all that is me, resides inside my poetry. And every time I write a rhyme, it might be the line that sets minds free. And also, I know that I don't...
Welcome to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This week, we're going to do something a little bit different. It's going to be a movie talk episode where we're going to look at ongoing franchises and some movies that you might not think that are connected to a larger running franchise of movies. We're going to talk about them in depth and maybe talk about where they might be going or where some of the rumors are going on surrounding them, where we might be seeing these franchises go in the future. But before we get into that, as always, I like to give a shout out to the sponsor of this and every episode, which is InStockTrades.com. If you have a moment, go check them out. It's one of the best places you can go online for collected editions. You can get savings from $35, $42 up to 50% off when you go check out their deals of the week. Currently on their site right now, they have the books 50% off for their deals of the week. We have Cosmic Odyssey Deluxe Edition hardcover, 50% off, only $17.49. They have Daredevil Epic Collection, Brother Take My Hand, which is 50% off, only $19.99. We have Green Lantern The Silver Age Omnibus hardcover volume 1, 50% off, only $49.99. Snot Girl trade paperback volume 1, Green Hair Don't Care, 50% off, only $4.99. And last but not least, they have the Wonder Woman Rebirth first trade, which is Wonder Woman volume 1. The Lies, and again, that's the first Wonder Woman trade of the Rebirth that just hit. That is 50% off, only $8.49. And if you're not familiar, if you're a customer within the U.S. and you place an order of $50 or more, you get free shipping within the U.S. If you're an international customer, you won't be able to take advantage of that savings, but you still get the great discounts. But they do have some of the most competitive and cheapest international shipping rates around, so you can still save a ton of money. So don't let that discourage you from checking out the deals on InStockTrades.com. And definitely, if you check them out or if you tried them, send them email and let them know you heard from here first. That always helps me out. And last but not least, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends over at the Comics Podcast Network, which you can find over at comicspodcast.com. If you like this podcast and you're looking for more comic book related content to listen to, this is the best melting pot or portal or jumping off spot to go find many new and interesting podcasts. It's a network of just comic related podcasters that come together at that site, and we post our wares, and we all promote one another to help grow the network and grow the different podcasters in the comic book podcasting realm. So it's a very positive thing that I've been a part of since its inception many years ago. And it's something I always promote in each and every episode, because, I've been at this for a long time, and I'm always in favor of promoting and helping this space grow. When I started, 10 years ago, it was maybe, 20, maybe 30. Now it's literally hundreds, maybe if not thousands at this point, comic book related podcasts. So it's something that I'm always proud to push and promote in each and one of my episodes, because it was because of this network that helped me grow, and we've helped new and upcoming people grow their audience and their exposure. So definitely always love to give a shout out to the Comic Podcast Network. Again, you can find them over at comicspodcast.com. And now to get into the meat of the episode, ongoing comic movie franchises. So I was doing a little research, and I always try to research in different topics that I want to cover ahead. And I just started thinking about what are some of the longest running movie franchises, or as far as when it comes to particular characters, what are some of the most long running, and it's not really a ton. But then I thought about it with at least franchises that have 3 or more movies. Now, you have the obvious ones, like the X-Men franchise. We have Superman. We have Spider-Man at this point. And Batman are the top achievements. Then we have some other characters in there. So let me just run through this and give you a gist of where I'm at with this. Batman, Warner Brothers, DC. It's been a lot of rumors. This is the first one I wanted to talk about, just all the rumors surrounding the Batman. So at this point, we know that Ben Affleck has appeared as Batman in Batman v Superman. We know he was in Suicide Squad in a cameo or extended cameo appearance. We know he shows up in some form in the Wonder Woman movie. We've already heard reports of that coming out, and we know they've already finished Justice League, and he's in that. Now it was a lot of buzz going on the past 6 months or more about the Batman, where he was supposed to produce, write, direct, and star in the movie. Then we got wind a couple of weeks ago that he's no longer going to direct the movie. And then it goes to rumors are going around that he's just kind of fed up with being Batman at this point, and he wants to get out of his deal. That is pure speculation. A lot of different people have, said they've heard from an inside person and an inside person. I normally don't get into that stuff, but since it's a topic, because we're talking about the movie franchise of Batman, it's a real thing that maybe he won't be Batman in the Batman. I can't remember if Justice League 1 and 2 were shot back to back, or even so if he's going to appear in that movie or not. Or no, because they were going to shoot him back to back, and then if I remember correctly, they chose to pull back production on the second movie so they can kind of slot the Batman movie in between when the next Justice League movie will come out. So we still know this year alone he's going to be in 2 more DC movies for certain. We don't know. The whole the Batman production is totally in flux at this point. He was supposed to be writing the script in cooperation with Jeff Johns. They had a script. Then they brought other people. I don't know. It didn't meet their what the studio was going to do. What the situation is. He brought in the guy he collaborated with for Argo to come in and do a rewrite. He did a rewrite that was there. Then the studio brought someone else in. It's just become this huge melodrama, and we don't know where or when, or if this movie's going to come out on time. With the script that Ben was working on, we had Joe Manganiello announced to be Deathstroke. We don't know if he's still going to be in the movie because the scripts are going through so many rewrites. Now it's a rumor that he might not even be in the movie at this point. Or it's just a huge cluster muck at this point. So we don't know anything, and it just further infuriates me with the whole situation in general, just with what's happening over at Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers is a fantastic studio, but they just have seemed to done horribly in handling this expanded movie universe and what they're going to do going forward. It seems like they're having problems getting this Batman movie off the ground, and of course we've heard all the directors coming on and leaving when it comes to The Flash as well. So these are 2 movies that were supposed to be coming out somewhere between really 2018 2019 that we don't really know after this year. I mean, we know now that Aquaman is like in a pre-production phase. I don't think they've started shooting yet, so that still looks on par to come out. But really, after Justice League, if I can talk, when Justice League comes out at the end of this year, we don't know really what the future of the DC expanded movie universe is going to be at this point, because the next movies on the slate are Aquaman. We're supposed to be Aquaman, Flash, and then the Batman got squeezed in there to be on the tail end, like either late 2018 or early 2019. At this point, we have no idea. So really, we're out of stuff, and so it hopes. There's been some some rumblings that it was a screening recently done of Wonder Woman, and they compare it very heavily to the first Captain America movie, Captain America the First Avenger, and say it's a wonderful movie. So we have heard really good things about buzz surrounding the Wonder Woman movie, and I hope so, because I have so many high hopes for that movie and for Justice League, because as much as I love the Marvel movies, I just love comics and comic movies in general. So when they're done and they're done properly, I'm all for it. Now, narrowing all this back down, since expanding on that's a part of the future when it comes to the Batman universe, we look back over the history of the Batman franchise of movies. We've had Batman, the 1966 Adam West Burt Ward movie. We have, and these are movies that had theatrical runs. Then we have the 1989 Tim Burton Batman with Michael Keaton, which to me is still a classic. Then we have Batman Returns that came out in 1992, probably one of my least favorite movies. In 1993, we had Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which has to go probably in my top 3 of Batman movies, even though it's an animated movie. It still holds up to this day. I love Mask of the Phantasm. Batman Forever, not one of the brighter moments for the franchise. Batman and Robin. Then we have the Nolan movies, Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises, which I liked all 3 movies. The Dark Knight Rises wasn't the strongest movie, but I loved the callbacks to Batman Begins, because I have to probably say, out of the whole, as a whole of all the Batman movies that have come out, that's probably still my favorite of all time is Batman Begins. I love the callbacks to The Dark Knight Rises due to it. It's not a perfect movie, but it's a pleasant movie, and I look at it more so as a more spiritual sequel to Batman Begins than The Dark Knight is. But The Dark Knight was an essentialist, a masterpiece in its own right. But still, for me, Batman Begins is the one I would be at the top of my list as far as my favorite Batman movie of the franchise as I listed. Now, another franchise that doesn't get a lot of due anymore, but it is a franchise because they had 3 movies, and it's been talks and rumblings over at least the past year, or almost going on 2 years now, about them picking up the Blade franchise. This was a time when Marvel, had their properties spread all around, and New Line had the rights to Blade, and they modernized it, put Wesley Snipes in the role, and they had 3 movies. I probably would say I own all 3 movies in my collection. I would probably say I still think the first one holds up, even though Blade 1 came out in 1998. So it was before, X-Men hit, so to me, I always look at this. We owe Blade, and it doesn't get talked about enough. It wasn't, people normally say this renaissance of comic book movies we have started with X-Men. That's not true, because Blade came out 2 years before. Now, it had of course, a way smaller budget. It didn't have they didn't have someone like, Bryan Singer coming off of something like The Unusual Suspects. So he was like one of the hottest names in Hollywood at the time. So it had a lot more hoopla. It had a lot more budget behind it. Fox is a huge studio. New Line was a smaller studio. So the budgets, it was a great difference there, and the talent they had associated with it, with Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, it garnered way more attention. But really, Blade they took it, made it, and it was rated R. It was a rated R comic book movie back in 1998. When before that point, when you think about it, outside of the Batman and Superman, films at this point, it had not been any really financially successful comic book movies at that point in time. Blade was successful. It had a small budget. It was successful. It was successful as far as in the box office. Now, was it $100 million hit? No, the movie industry was totally different back in 1998. But it was successful, and it was successful enough that it spawned, 2 sequels. And the next sequel, Blade 2, was a decent movie. It doesn't hold up as much now, but it's still a cool, fun popcorn movie. Del Toro. I can't remember. Guillermo del Toro directed Blade 2. It had a bigger budget. It had some Ron Perlman and Wesley was back, and I can't remember the other guy that's in it. I can't remember what his name is off the top of my head, but he is in. Is he the one that played Chariot in Rogue One? I want to say he might be the same guy that played Chariot in Rogue One, and he also played in the most recent Triple X movie as well. Like, it was a young him, and those are kind of like the most notable names in the movie. Yeah, that I can remember at this point in time, because I'm doing this totally off of memory as far as the staff. It was a little bit more successful. It had a little bit bigger budget. New Line was a hot studio and a commodity at this time. But again, at this point, it kind of did get eclipsed because now we were in the world of X-Men. And like I said, bigger budget and, bigger names were associated with it. But it was successful. It spawned Blade Trinity, which is probably the worst movie out of the trilogy in this franchise. David Goyer, which is a very successful writer, and who worked with Nolan on their Batman movies, the Christopher Nolan movies, and he's been associated with DC, and he's done work on what was it? Man of Steel. He worked on the script for Man of Steel as well. So he's been in and around. He had success, and the Blade movies were successful. He was a writer on all three. He wrote and directed. He wrote and directed Blade Trinity, and it was the weakest out of the three movies. And they were trying to do this thing where they were trying to extend the franchise out. Most notably, Ryan Reynolds was in the movie, and they were trying to spin off him and Jessica Biel off into their off a spin-off series of movies, and it just wasn't executed well. It's still a fun popcorn movie, but it was definitely the other ones I can still watch at any point. I can watch scenes of Blade Trinity, but watching the whole movie. And Dominique Purcell is in the movie as well, which I love now on Legends of Tomorrow on the CW as Heatwave. He plays Dracula or Draco, or however they did it. It's all the fault of the writing, not the actors in that movie. Parker Posey's in the movie as well. It's a fun movie. It doesn't hold up nearly as well as the other two movies in the franchise, but Blade was a viable franchise, and they talked about trying to revive it. I mean, Wesley Snipes even put something out there last year where he was like kind of in talks or negotiations to maybe they were going to do another one-off movie trying to revitalize the franchise. It was talk that Marvel wanted to do. Blade had a daughter, and they were going to do something within the comics, and then maybe do something like a Netflix show with it, which maybe I would prefer to see that, because I don't know how viable after, the last, Blade came out in 1998, Blade 2 came out in 2002, and then Blade Trinity came out in 2004. We haven't had a Blade movie, what I'm saying, what we're like 13 years ago. I don't think I need to see, per se, Wesley Snipes being Blade now. If he was a supporting character in launching him having a child, an offspring, and then him playing the kind of Whistler role that was played by so nicely by I'm seeing his face and I can't remember his name in the first movie, but play a support role in launching a new person, like him having a son or a daughter. The daughter thing would be cool. I'm all about female heroines, so it would be cool seeing a female in that role now. To see that, I would like to see him in a supporting role to help launch a new franchise. But I think maybe a Netflix series, like a 8 to 10 episode Netflix series, and where he again played a supporting role, would be awesome. That's what I would like to see in the future for the Blade franchise, more so than another major motion picture. Because I think if they did a major motion picture, that I don't know if it would be viable and anywhere successful in this new generation of, comic fans. Like, we're not the target audience. When I'm saying, like, we are the older listeners here around my age, 40, 50 years old, we're not the target demographic. We remember the Blade movies if you've seen them. For the younger generation of comic fans, they're not probably too familiar with the franchise. So to put that out, to put the money that would be needed to put out to produce a decent Blade movie, would they make it back in the box office? I don't think they would. I mean, a lot of things where they've reintroduced old franchises that have been away for 10, 15, 20 years, and they try to put out a movie, they all tanked. So I think in this case, a Netflix series would probably be more accommodating than trying to put out a full blast motion picture on about the Blade franchise. And I would like to see that because they did some sketches and everything. I don't know if they did introduce the daughter in the comics world or not, because again, I don't read every single current comic, so I can't remember. But I remember they showed preliminary sketches and everything like that. So I know it was something in the works. I don't know if it ever hit the light of day, but there was a lot of talk about it about a year or so ago. Next, we have the Captain America franchise. Of course, we know everything about the Marvel expanded, universe, but really, as of this recording, we only have 2 trilogies that have completed in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point. We have Captain America, and then we have Iron Man, which I'm going to talk about next. With Captain America, hands down my favorite. When I talk about all these, it is my favorite comic book trilogy of movies to date, and it will change because we still have 2 more Avengers movies to come. It's a lot. We're assuming that the new Spider-Mans, they're going to be a trilogy of movies. So this can change down the road. But as of right now, I love the Captain America, the First Avenger, which came out in 2011, which is funny for me because I don't normally like period movies or throwback, movies like that. I love that movie. I still love it. I think it holds up. It doesn't hold up as strongly. I rewatched it this summer, a few months back, and some of it doesn't hold up well, mainly like the effects and certain stuff in it, but still a solid movie. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, hands down, probably, if not my favorite comic book movie of all time that I've seen to date. It is up in my top 3 for sure. Love this movie. That came out in 2014. And then we have Captain America Civil War that just came out last year. A phenomenal movie, but I still think Winter Soldier is a little bit better. But as far as a trilogy of movies and a continued story and a development of the character and the character's arc, I have to say, Captain America is one of the strongest. And I'm curious to see what they're going to do with the character post Avengers Infinity War or the next one. I would like to, there's a lot of different things. I was surprised that, Steve didn't get killed at the end of Civil War, like in the comics. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes if he makes it past, Infinity War or the following movie, to see if he's going to be in this, because, Feige recently said they did a promo video for Infinity War because that's currently in production, where they talked about everything we've seen from 2008 to now when the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this is the culmination of it, and it's going to, the cinematic universe is going to look radically different after Infinity War. So I tend to worry about that because I really, really, really enjoy Chris Evans in the role of Steve Rogers. So I'm curious to see, but I like Sebastian Stan as well as the Winter Soldier. So, and they have the potential to go there. They also have the potential with the Sam Wilson, character. He's been Captain America as well. So, we've already established the 2 other people that held the mantle of Captain America are both alive and kicking right now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so they can go a lot of different directions. So I'm going to be really curious to see, and I like all the actors, but it's just, I love Chris Evans, and give me like one or two more movies with him as Cap. I just love his, he really buys into it, and he's committed to that character, and, I want more, because his last two movies have, no, let me not say his last two movies. I'll say more so Civil War was more of a setup for what's coming in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And even though it still had him at the core of it, but I want another movie like the first two where he's the central character in it. And I feel like he's not been disserviced in the movies, but I wanted just one that just strips him back down, and it's just like maybe him. I love Winter Soldier too, because as much as it is a Steve Rogers movie, it is clearly, they developed Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow character so much in that movie, which is another reason why I love it, as well as the introduction of Sam and his relationship with Cap was developed so well in that movie, but it was still a Cap movie at heart. Civil War a little less so, but what it did, in not feeling like it was shoehorned in Avengers Age of Ultron, anyone, the setup that the rest of the universe needed, and you can kind of say Captain America Civil War is more like Avengers 2.5 than it is Captain America, but it still is an awesome movie, and it still develops the character in Steve Rogers, though it's in smaller portions compared to the other two movies. But that's another franchise I love. We have the Iron Man franchise, which the original Iron Man is the one that started the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe off, dropping in 2008. Iron Man 2 came out in 2010, and then we got Iron Man 3 in 2013, which doesn't seem like it's been that long ago since Iron Man 3 came out. But, we've seen his character everywhere else since then, so it doesn't seem like we haven't seen Tony Stark in so long because of the Avengers movies and everything else. This franchise doesn't hold up nearly as much for me. It's curious to see where the character might go. Well, it remains to be seen if it's going to be Iron Man 4. He's been in other movies, and we know coming in the future, Tony's going to be in Infinity War. Tony's going to be he plays a major role, it seems like, in Spider-Man Homecoming. So he's going to be seen other places. We don't know where else at this point, but at least we know, in the next year or so, Tony Stark is going to be in 2 more movies. So he's still around and kicking very well. Iron Man 2, we know the debacle, which was Iron Man 2. I thought it was decent, but, a lot got edited out. There was too much. They were trying to do way too much too soon and try to set up stuff that didn't pay off. Iron Man 3, you just can go back and listen to my review. I have a nifty search feature on there, so just look for Iron Man 3 or Iron Man 3 review, and you should be able to find the episode. If you go to the Comic Book Savant website, you can easily go back and find these episodes now when I reference, so it saves me a ton of trying to go back and find them. You can just type in that and it should pull up for you. My deep feelings of Iron Man 3. It has gotten better for me. I rewatched it a few times over the years, and I don't dislike it as much as I initially did. It actually is a fun movie for me now when I go back and watch it. And I like the tie-in and callbacks that are placed in there back to the first movie, and I talk about those as well in the review. So the Iron Man franchise is meh for me overall. I hope to see more, but it'll be interesting. And again, we have Rhodey there, though. We don't know what kind of shape Rhodey's going to be in going forward, where you can kind of continue the Iron Man legacy through him and give him a solo movie. But we haven't had any announcements on anything phase 4, at this point. I think all the movies that are slated for phase 3 have all been announced or in some form or getting ready to be in production. Is when we hit 2020 after these 2 Avengers movies, because I think that kind of bookends or finishes off phase 3. we have no idea what's to come down the pike in phase 4 as of yet, and it remains to be seen. So maybe in the summer we might start getting some. And I mean, we probably are not going to hear to the very end, because if they let any cat out of the bag on what's going to be in phase 4, it'll give away details of what we're going to see coming in these upcoming movies leading into Infinity War. So we're probably not going to hear too much going forward and relate to what comes beyond, Miss Marvel, Black Panther, the untitled second Avengers movie after Infinity War. We're not going to know those things. I mean, we'll probably be operating in the frame of that's all we'll still be hearing at this point, is about the upcoming already announced phase movies moving forward to probably like 2019, maybe even early 2020, I think, because they can't without, maybe after Infinity War, when it drops next year, maybe we'll start getting more hints. But again, it remains to be seen. And let's see. We have The Punisher, which, as in with the Blade trilogy, they've had a trilogy of movies, though they've had different actors playing the role in all 3 movies. The Punisher franchise, it's been interesting. We had the 1989 Dolph Lundgren kind of B-flick, straight-to-home video Punisher movie. This was when Marvel was in the dark times and everybody owned the Marvel properties and put out movies. If you're just a fan of comic books and you've never seen the Punisher Dolph Lundgren movie with him and Lou Gossett Jr., it's a watch. It's an interesting take on the Punisher. It's not really the Punisher, but the Punisher. It has some cool stuff. It's a campy late 80s action, early 90s action flick. So it is enjoyable. And you need to watch it. If you're a comics fan and you like the Punisher, you just need to watch it to have context on it, and you can appreciate this more recent stuff with the Punisher. Then we have the 2004 Punisher movie with Thomas Jane, which I think was it was okay. I like Thomas Jane as the Punisher. The story and the execution of the movie just itself is okay. It's okay, but I don't love it. I kind of like it, don't love it, enjoyed it. I haven't watched it in a while. It's not a movie that calls back to me. I like the little short that Thomas Jane did a few years back called Dirty Laundry, where it was more not studio driven and his just pure vision of what he wanted to see the Punisher character. I don't know if it's still available on YouTube. He put it out. He couldn't reference him being the Punisher directly in the movie. But he's the Punisher. He's his Punisher character. And it's done really well. It's like a 10 or 8 minute, something like short that he did. And it's just phenomenal. And it made me want to see another Punisher movie, because I want to say the Punisher wasn't rated R, or maybe it was rated R. I can't remember. Or it was maybe PG-13. I can't remember which one it was, but he is definitely a comic book head, and they should have, went with his influence, because it just seemed whoever wrote the movie didn't have a true 100% feel on the Punisher character. And I mean, it had John Travolta, it had some notable actors in it, but it just fell flat. It didn't hit like I wanted a Punisher movie, and I dug him. Okay, he could be my Punisher. Then we had in 2008 we had another actor play the Punisher, and we got Punisher Warzone. I own the Punisher movies. I own Punisher Warzone. I haven't went back and rewatched it. I watched it years ago, and it was not memorable. I know it was rated R. It was like over the top rated R, but kind of cartoony. Just didn't capture the particular essence it needed for a Punisher movie. And then, we had the television stuff with John Bernthal playing Punisher on Daredevil, and now he has a Netflix series that's going to be, I don't know when it's going to drop. It probably, I don't know. I know they've already filmed it. I don't know when it's going to be released, because we know we have, Iron Fist coming out, I think in March. I think it's sometime in March, middle of March. Then Defenders comes after that, so that'll be the next show. So I don't know if they're going to launch a third show. So far, I think they do like two of the Marvel Netflix shows a year, but I know it's in the can, and they were filming while all these shows were kind of shooting simultaneously in New York. So I don't know, like, will it drop? Will they go up to 3 shows and it'll be out in 2017, or it'll be like their early 2018, the first show that will drop in 2018? Not sure. It remains to be seen. I guess we'll find out. But I like him as Punisher as well. But again, I still haven't gotten that perfect tone. He's been the closest. I think hands down, he's probably been the closest to what I envision in of the Punisher. And the Punisher is one of my favorite characters in comics. And I was like, they're getting closer in each attempt, but they haven't nailed it. They've came closest, John Bernthal's, and like I said, but they're doing a Netflix route. So I don't know if we'll ever see him in a major motion picture, but they're on the right track with that. And as long as they don't make his series too long, and I think hopefully it's 8 to 10 episodes, not 13. But we don't know yet. So, but that's the closest when it comes to nailing that character down. We haven't gotten that definitive, where I can say Wesley Snipes' Blade is the definitive Blade character for that incarnation. Chris Evans is the quintessential and essential. Who I think of Captain America, I think of Chris Evans. Tony Stark with Robert Downey Jr., et cetera, et cetera. I think John Bernthal, even though I think Thomas Jane could have been that as well, given the right material. I just think the material wasn't given. He wasn't given the right material yet. I think John Bernthal is going to be that when it's all said and done, because he'll have the best material to work with and the best produced content when it comes in, down the pike. And hopefully how he's portrayed and the intensity he brings to the role, that character can cross over, and maybe you would see him pop up maybe like in a Spider-Man movie or something down the road. I would love that. It remains to be seen. But my fingers crossed, maybe we'll see Punisher in another movie, even if it's more in a smaller, he's an antagonist in a like Spider-Man movie or something like that. Next, we have Spider-Man. The Spider-Man franchise, we've had, quite a few. We've had 2, well, it was supposed to be a trilogy. We would have had 2 separate trilogies. We had the first round of the first trilogy, which was the Sam Raimi and Tobey Maguire movies, which we had Spider-Man that came out in 2002. We had Spider-Man 2, which came out in 2004, and then Spider-Man 3, which came out in 2007, which was a debacle and just killed that for me so bad. I think Spider-Man 2, I've talked about this plenty of times, is my favorite out of the franchise, particularly the 2.5. When the Blu-ray, because this when Blu-ray was first coming out, the Blu-ray set had box set had a extended a version of Spider-Man 2, which is the definitive edition for me, that had an elongated fight scene between a Dr. Octopus and Spider-Man who were fighting on the train, which just cements that movie as the best Spider-Man movie out of that Raimi Maguire trilogy of movies. Then we had the Mark Webb, Andrew Garfield, which I thought Andrew Garfield was a great Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Again, I don't know, between Mark Webb and all the stuff the studio was trying to do, Sony was trying to do, and I think they dirtied his vision of what he wanted Spider-Man to be, and he was trying to answer to a lot of different cooks in the being in the pot, and then it all just kind of fell apart as too much when I made the Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out. Amazing Spider-Man was okay. I was looking real forward to Amazing Spider-Man 2, and they just did way too much. And I liked Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy in that, and the chemistry that her and Andrew Garfield. So those movies had potential, but then they just decided to scrap everything. They made this cool deal with Marvel, and now we have Tom Holland, which knocked it out in Civil War with his first appearance as a younger high school Peter Parker. I like that vibe. I'm looking very forward to this summer with Spider-Man Homecoming coming out. So, a big, we have high hopes for that. It's not here yet. But again, we've had 5 Spider-Man movies, soon to be 6. Again, I would have to say my favorite is Spider-Man 2. And I'm super optimistic about, from the first trailers we've seen of Spider-Man Homecoming, of where they're, of where they're going with the franchise moving forward. Excuse me, throat getting dry. I had to sip some water real quick. Excuse me. So I'm interested to see where this franchise will go in the future, and it seems like it's in good hands. I hope that Homecoming is received well. I'm really looking forward to this summer movie season. I think this is going to be a turning point for a lot of different things. So I hope it does well so we can get more Spider-Man movies, and hopefully these will bring that franchise and that character back into prominence, because those last 2 Amazing Spider-Man movies were, well, shoot, if you go back to even Spider-Man 3, the last 3 movies weren't really good movies. They had moments, but they weren't really good. So we need a good Spider-Man movie to drop and stick right about now. Next, we have Superman. The Superman franchise has been running since the late 70s with Superman, the original Superman movie with Christopher Reeve back in 1978. Then we had Superman 2 in 1980. Showing my age because I've seen all these movies and I saw them all at the movie theater too. What does that say about me? That I was old. Well, no, I didn't see I did see the original Superman at the movies. So Superman 2, Superman 3, 1983, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, horrible movie, 1987, Superman Returns, which was in 2006, which I kind of like. More so than a lot of other people. I like that movie a little bit. And Man of Steel, which I love, which is my favorite Superman movie out of all of these, even the original, even though, the original is my, heart. Superman was a good franchise. Like I said, till Superman 3 was kind of in 83. They were stretching with that a little bit. Had Richard Pryor in it, and it was a big thing because the first 2 Superman movies were so huge. It seemed like the studios kept trying to throw more and more elements to bring more and more general audiences in, and Richard Pryor was one of the hottest comedians at the time. They threw him in the movie, and it just kind of faltered, and it just lost its way totally when it went to Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Then many years passed, over just almost a decade. Well, no, more than that. Yeah, the Superman franchise was on hiatus from 87 to 2006, and then Superman Returns. It was like a reboot, but a reimagining / sequel to the Donner Superman movies, which primarily storyline wise, Superman Returns was a spiritual sequel to Superman 2 because Bryan Singer worked with and alongside Richard Donner. It was kind of like his homage to his mentor and picking up where he left off. And it wasn't, and the only reason I know that is that I watched when they released the Donner cut of Superman 1 and 2, Bryan Singer did a lot of commentary and did a lot of featurettes for it where he, explicitly spelled out that Superman Returns was really like a spiritual successor or sequel to the stuff Donner did in Superman 2, and picking up with those threads. It wasn't explained to the general public that that's what it was. So people were looking for it to be a reboot, but then the weird connections and threads, it was a sequel. So it's really like a sequel to Superman 2. But the general public didn't know that, so they didn't know how to receive it. It kind of came off weird. Parts of it kind of came off kind of creepy. You got to look at it in the context in which it was produced off of as a sequel to that, since Superman 2 at one point was one of my favorite Superman movies. At that point, I saw the connections. I had just recently rewatched the movie so I could understand it, and it worked for me. Would it ever be on my top 5 or top 10 list of greatest comic book movies of all time? No, but I liked it, and I liked it a lot. So, I own it. And then we have Man of Steel, which I love this movie. I love it. I just recently went back and watched Man of Steel after watching Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Edition. And it works as one. If you watch Man of Steel, and then you watch Batman v Superman Ultimate Cut back to back. That's going to be like a long watch because that's like the 4.5, 5 hours of stuff to watch. Watch it, and it's basically feels like one complete movie, and it makes it one awesome, complete like Superman story. But you got to watch the Ultimate Edition because all the Superman stuff is cut out of the theatrical release. You got to watch the Ultimate Cut to get all the Lois and the Clark stuff as being a reporter and all that, and it makes more sense and it fits so well with Man of Steel, and it feels like kind of, for me, I don't look at Casino Royale as just one movie. You have to, because the story continues in Quantum of Solace. People don't like Quantum of Solace, but you have to understand it's a companion to because the story that started in Casino Royale, and at the end of Quantum of Solace, you finally get the resolution of that complete story. So it's one complete movie, though it's broken up into two different movies. It's still one whole story, so you need both parts for it to all make sense. And that's what I feel for Man of Steel. You got to see Ultimate Cut, Batman v Superman to go in that. But again, this is a franchise that is, we've heard rumblings that it is going to be a proper Man of Steel sequel. I love Henry Cavill as Clark and I keep wanting to say Batman and as Superman. And I'm not a huge Superman fan because I think he's too much of a Boy Scout, but I like what Cavill's take on him because he's not so much a Boy Scout, but he's getting there because he's still learning the ropes of how to be a superhero. So I think we'll eventually get to what the quintessential vision of what Superman is, maybe in Justice League or maybe by Man of Steel 2, but he's growing. He's only been Superman for a short amount of time. So, I think might get the greatest on-screen Superman when it's all said and done because I think he has the chops to do it. He just needs the material, and hopefully Man of Steel 2, with all this stuff over in Warner Brothers and DC with the DC movies, like I talked about earlier, they said they're gonna do a proper sequel to it, but there's another thing when it's gonna come out because we still have Justice League and these other movies on the slate. So I feel like they kind of squandered the opportunity because if he doesn't do another proper, Superman movie. Man of Steel came out in 2013. We're already at 2017, and he was disserviced in Batman v Superman. I don't think because he died in that movie how much of a role he's going to have in Justice League. Justice League 2, or I would think at this point you would have to have a Man of Steel 2 maybe before you have Justice League 2 to set him up a little properly, because I think they've kind of squandered this. Cavill's kind of like in his prime, and they've kind of mishandled his franchise to kind of try to relaunch Batman coming out of the Nolan stuff, and I think they've disserviced him in the process of doing that. So, I hope he can stay around long enough to really elevate this franchise, because I want to see a trilogy of Superman movies with Henry Cavill, at least, a trilogy, and they're behind the 8 ball, now, because we can turn around these movies and release, a new comic book movie, once every other year. We don't have to wait 3 or 4 years like we did, in the early 2000s and in the late 90s and the early 2000s, it's a different time. We can turn these movies around way quicker now. So I think they got to play catch up to take full advantage of him in his prime playing this character. Last but not least, we have the X-Men franchise, which spawns not just through, X-Men proper, because we have X-Men that started in 2000. Then we have X-Men 2 that's in 2003. Then we have X-Men The Last Stand, horrible movie. That was in 2006. Then we veered off, and then we had X-Men Origins Wolverine. So you kind of have to include the Wolverine movies because they're under that umbrella of air quotes X-Men movies. Then we got X-Men First Class, and then the Wolverine. Then X-Men Days of Future Past, and X-Men Apocalypse. Then you even got to kind of include, because of the crossover and all that, kind of Deadpool in there. So the X-Men franchise has had some serious ups and downs, but they've always stayed connected in some weird shape, form, or fashion. X-Men I don't. Well, you know what? I don't really like X-Men as much as most people. I still love X-Men 2. And I think Days of Future Past, the director's cut of Days of Future Past, is my favorite, tied with X2, because X2 still holds up well. I watched at least X-Men 1 and 2 not too long ago, and one didn't work as much for me as it used to. It doesn't hold up. 17 years later, it doesn't hold up as well. X-Men 2 still holds up, and it still is probably next to Days of Future Past. Would be tied for first, or just a hair to second. Last Stand again is horrible. I like parts of X-Men Origins Wolverine. I like X-Men First Class. Their movies have been pretty well. Have done pretty well and have been pretty good. I enjoyed Wolverine. I've really enjoyed all their movies. I'd say the movies that I've enjoyed the least is the last half of X-Men Origins Wolverine. The second half of that movie, didn't care for. First half, I like a lot. Second half, totally ruined the movie. X-Men The Last Stand, horrible movie. And I will say X-Men Apocalypse is I liked half the movie. The other half, I didn't like. Deadpool, awesome. Days of Future Past, awesome. Wolverine, I didn't care for the ending portion, but the rest of that movie I really enjoyed. So like I said, they are one franchise when I look at this list that the consistency of the movies have probably been the most super high, super it's been all over the place. So consistency in the content has been not questionable, but shaky, because it can be super high and it can be in the middle, and then you have a couple of bombs that were just bombs in there, because Last Stand is a bomb. And coming off of Days of Future Past, Apocalypse was kind of a bomb, even though it's a decent movie. It just didn't hold up. You were coming off such a high with Days of Future Past, and they did a great job of fusing the original cast in with the First Class cast, and they did something I didn't think they could pull off, and they did it well. And then Apocalypse was such a letdown, being off compared to coming off the high of Days of Future Past. Deadpool kind of redeemed it. We know we have a Deadpool 2 coming. We know we have a new X-Men. I think Supernova's coming, where they're talking to Simon Kinberg. He wrote the script already. He's in negotiations to possibly direct it. And then I just read an article last night before recording this morning about Joe Hanahan. He directed the A-Team movie a few years back. He's known for some other stuff too. I think Ryan Reynolds is spearheading producing on that X-Force movie. I think what it looks like now is after Deadpool 2 is done, they're going to launch right into, and they're already trying to nail Hanahan down as the director for the X-Force movie. And they're going to tell, I guess we are expected to see some of Cable's origins, because Cable's going to be in Deadpool 2, that it's going to set up and lead into X-Force. So it's a ton of, so as we know it now, again, we have X-Force, Deadpool 2, X-Men tentatively known as Supernova, and then it's supposed to be a New Mutants movie that's in production that they're been doing casting on. So we have like a handful of X-Men movies that are still in the horizon that we might see anywhere in the next 2 to 3 years hit the screen. So they're still going strong. I'm super excited about that. So that's my comic ongoing movie franchise. Again, to qualify to get on this list, you had to at least have 3 movies in that under your belt in that. This has sparked me doing the research and everything for this episode, sparked me to come up with a new segment to do down the road, of episodes that I don't want to let out the bag yet. But it's going to be coming sometime. Like, this series is going to be coming up during the summer, and it's going to be fun because it associates with some of the upcoming movies that are going to be coming out. But I think you guys will really enjoy it if you like this episode. Most of you guys tend to like the movie reviews and stuff that I do. So it's going to be in that theme and vein. But that's going to be coming down the pike. As always, check out the website, comicbooksavant.com. Follow me on Twitter at comicbooksavant, Instagram at comicbooksavant. It is a YouTube channel. Please go. I tried to do this contest where I was trying to drive you guys there. I think it was overly complicated, and I didn't think it out the best, but I know I wanted to do a contest. So scratch that. You don't have to go to the YouTube channel unless you want to. I'm still trying to get over my anxiety of being in front of a camera and doing video, so that's still in the works. And like I said, episodes are posted there. If you're at home on a computer and you want to listen to the most recent podcast, you can just go to do a search for Comic Book Savant on YouTube, and you should find the channel. I don't have a custom URL yet because I don't have enough subscribers there to create just the Comic Book Savant custom URL. You have to have a certain number of subscribers to get to that point. So I don't have that yet, so you just have to type in Comic Book Savant, and it should come up in the search. And a link is on the website. So if you ever need to get it to any of my social media, any of my things that are connected to the show, just go to comicbooksavant.com, and you'll find all the links to everything you need right there on the page. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to just dead that whole go to subscribe to YouTube, to the YouTube channel. Don't worry about that. Scratch that. The content is going to be real simple. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Book Savant. If I see all the new people that are coming in as of the release of this episode, I'm going to run it for a month. So for the next, 4 episodes or whatever, the next month, the contest will end the end of March. So whoever, I'm going to take all the new followers that I get in that time frame, and all the new followers that I get will go into a thing. I randomly will select the winner from that. You'll win the $25 gift certificate from InStockTrades.com. They've already agreed to that. We have all that worked out. So it's just a little contest I want to give back to you guys. Follow me on Twitter at Comic Book Savant. And again, all the new followers that I get from now until the end of March goes into a bucket to win a $25 gift certificate to InStockTrades.com. So check them out as well for their cooperation, InStockTrades.com. Like I said, they're a great partner and a good sponsor to the show. I appreciate all the love I get from you guys, and y'all spreading the word. The show has continued to grow. I appreciate everything you guys do to support the show and keep it going strong. I will see you guys back next week for another episode of Comic Book Savant. Sorry, this one was a longer episode, but it was some good stuff. I think I gave you guys some good content. So I will see you guys next week back for another episode. Take care. And sorry for the episode being late. It was a little later this week, and I apologize for that. I was a little under the weather, so I wanted to make sure I still got your episode out this week. So take care. See you guys next week for another episode of Comic Book Savant.
And into lyrical wholeness